I look at something that when people are running away from, I'm going towards that thing because that means there's opportunity there. People are running away from California. I'm going to run into it because if I can go in there and figure out what's wrong with it and fix that problem, then I'm going to be winning.
Hey everybody, this is Travis Dillard, Mitchell, England, and who is not with us is Gabriel Hamill, and you are tuned into the 0 to 100 podcast. This is all about how do you leverage the vehicle of real estate to generate outsized cash flow returns, risk-adjusted outsized cash flow returns. How do you look at everything through the lens of time? And instead of like buying a bunch of jobs, how do you actually generate true passive income? Some people call that mailbox money, but how do you replace all of your W-2 income, your self-employment income, to replace all of your living and lifestyle expenses, or to cover your living and lifestyle expenses? We call that R1, retirement number one. And it's all about how do you scale fast? How do you get fast education, take fast action, think big, buy bigger properties, partner with people with capital, provide value, kick ass, be amazing. We're all working on that, Mitchell especially. And we've got an amazing guest on today. We're really excited. We're just chatting before the call here, which I'm really excited about. His name is Alvin Uy, and I'm glad I asked how to pronounce his last name because I'd have messed that up, which is, I do that. But excited to have Alvin, and I'll get into his intro here in a second. But I like Alvin because he's a bit of a contrarian thinker. Like he's like, what's this like 0 to 100 thing before we got on the call? And I'm like, oh, it's 100 units and it's just a number. It's how do you generate cash flow? And he's like, yeah. I'm like, but you can disagree with like the things we think about. He also invests in California, which we always are like poo-pooing California because it's a landlord hostile state. If you look at his bio, he's like, man, he's like crushing it in California. And so I love that he's a contrarian. I assured him that I have no ego, that I love countering opinions, that you got to tread lightly with Mitch because he's angry. Yeah. He's an angry, salty little troll. and he might take offense to it. You can't tell
what
Mitch
an introduction. This is incredible. Yeah.
And Gabe's not with us. Gabe's actually out in Oklahoma City as we're recording this, dealing with some of the results that happen when you invest with the wrong people. And I know all about that. So we'll miss Gabe. Alvin's happy because apparently Gabe has a lot of shit on him, a lot of dirt, and Gabe will be asking all kinds of questions.
I'm going to be texting Gabe during the podcast to see if I can.
Yeah,
see if I can get some good questions.
So that makes me more intrigued. So stay tuned for some really uncomfortable conversations. So Alvin, 2013. He's an entrepreneur too. He introduced the world to Soapbox, a children's bath product unlike any other. And it appeared on ABC's Shark Tank the following year. It wowed the sharks and viewers alike. He turned down a $1 million buyout from all three investors, but he was just getting started. He was with a combination of product design expertise and a determination to succeed. He launched Soapbox into multiple markets and made it a product sold around the world on mass market retailers. The innovative product even won an award for its design. While building the Soapbox empire, Alvin never lost sight of his true passion, which is real estate, which we all love. It's all near and dear to our heart. He has over 20 years of experience in the industry doing honing his skills on value-add investments, property management, construction, rehabbing distressed homes, fix and flips, creative financing, all the stuff that we like to nerd out on here in the show. And he now boasts a $30 million real estate portfolio spanning multiple states. In recent years, he set his sights on tackling the housing crisis in Southern California. This is what makes me super interested, by focusing on new development of small multifamily SB9, have no idea what that is, but we'll find out, and the production of ADUs, or accessory dwelling units, like apartments on properties. By the way, this is a big thing in Portland, Oregon, too. I think one of our elites, Jonah's doing some of this stuff and having success. So I really want to dig into this. He's a husband, he's a father, he's an older brother, and he's a friend to many. He's dedicated to sharing his wealth of knowledge and experience with those around him. And he's inspired by his humble beginnings. He is driven by a mission to extend his parents' legacy while helping others achieve a higher degree of personal excellence and exceed their own expectations. Now, I feel like shit about myself after reading that bio. And appreciate that, Alvin. And
you should,
Mitch
Travis. You should.
Certainly got to feel worse. Alvin's also an immigrant, which I think is pretty cool. I want to get into that. But hey, Alvin, man, welcome to the show. Appreciate you joining us. And are you calling in from Southern Cal this morning?
Yes, sir. Los Angeles. I'm in Eagle Rock, Los Angeles. If you guys don't know what that is, it's basically right in between Pasadena and Glendale. So
It's probably really pretty down there, right? Isn't that a nice area?
it's a nice area, of course.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I feel like California's I feel like
Southern
California's a
California,
mixed bag,
man.
though. I don't know. I was in San Diego. I was like, I don't know. It seems.
San Diego.
I know. Yeah.
I like San Diego. Yeah, but I think like people in LA and San Diego sort of have a rivalry, right? Like,
I wouldn't say that. I like San Diego.
Yeah,
I have family in San Diego.
Oh, you can't say that. You can't be recorded saying that. So that's the problem.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Anyway. All right. Well, I'm jealous. I'm in Wisconsin. You're in California, so you get all the good weather, and I'm out here. It's muggy and hot, and then freezing cold in the winter time. So anyway, I'd love to be where you are.
All the cheese you can eat out there.
Oh yeah, trust me. They have no shortage of cheese and cheese curds and cheese. They just take cheese and change the form of it. It's terrible.
Constipated Mitch, Wisconsin. Yeah, I love it. Well, so Alvin, it's funny. People bitch about California and the taxes and stuff, but I've heard some people say, well, I mean, you're paying tax to live in a beautiful place with access to all kinds of cool amenities, the beaches and stuff like that. So, I love your love for California. So, Alvin, we want to learn more. We want to learn a little bit about your story. We always ask people to go back to pre-entrepreneur Alvin, pre-investment investor badass Alvin. Like, let's go back to the very beginning. You especially have a really interesting story. We love talking to people that are sort of self-made and have interesting background. So let's go to Baby Alvin. Like, tell us your story.
Baby Alvin. Woo.
Baby Alvin.
Okay.
Yep.
You want to go that far? Oh my gosh. I don't know if you have. I don't know if we have time here.
Baby Alvin. Well, you can paraphrase a little bit.
All right. So I'll try to make this kind of quick and concise. But so I immigrated from the Philippines when I was 12 years old. What I remember is this: my parents waking us up in the middle of the night saying like, "Hey guys, we're going to Disneyland." So
wow, that's how they pitched it.
Yeah, that's how they pitched it. Woke us up in the middle of the night. Me and my 4 other siblings got up and got dressed. We're like, all right, we're going to Disneyland. So we flew to the US, did the whole Disneyland tour, did the whole, Knott's Berry Farm, Universal Studios, everything we could possibly do in California, in Los Angeles. And then 1 week turned into a couple weeks, realizing we're jumping around from relative to friends, and we're basically couch surfing as a family, right?
So you didn't really know.
I had no idea.
You're just like, man, this is a really long trip, guys. Yep. Wow.
See, my dad just said he's going out for ketchup and he never came back. I'm joking. He didn't. My dad did come back.
My parents tried to take us to Disneyland. We did a road trip and my dad turned around halfway.
Yeah. So, we were couch surfing, and next thing you know, I finally had asked my parents, I go, hey, when are we going back? And my parents said, we're not going back. We're staying here. And that kind of just like wrecked me. Like, I didn't know how to react to that. Like, I just didn't know what's going on. And come to quickly realize that my parents also had basically spent all their money at this point. Jumping around, ended up buying a car because, as you know, moving to the US, if you have no job experience, you have no work experience, you have no credit history, you don't live anywhere. I mean,
super tough.
You end up just spending all your cash. And, my parents come from I guess you can say fairly wealthy background. In the Philippines at the time, you're either really rich or you're really poor.
Good.
And so they brought everything with them, and come to find out that they ran out of money, and they can't get money from my grandparents because they were cut off, because they effectively disobeyed by coming to the US.
Well, was that their original plan? Did they know that they weren't coming back, or did they go there and spend all their money and then they couldn't get back?
No. So here's what's happened. So at the time, there's some political turmoil there, and I don't exactly know what happened, but like some of my family's involved in politics in that time. I can't even remember if it's election time or whatnot, but they've made some, rivals that had threatened to kidnap us and, all that stuff for ransom. And if I remember correctly, one of my siblings actually got kidnapped that same day that we left.
Oh my gosh.
he was quickly returned by the kidnapper because that kidnapper happened to be a good friend of my dad's. And in fact, my dad was so like nice to him that my dad actually allowed him to stay in one of his lands.
Whoa.
And so he felt guilty and like, you know what? Instead of bringing my sibling, my brother, to a place that he was supposed to deliver him, he ended up just, bringing my brother directly, my dad. And
wow,
so
that's a crazy story.
yeah, so my parents freaked out, and at this point, they had their visas, and it's about to expire, and they're like, "Man, we're just gonna take a leap at this." And they had tried to go to the U.S. before that, but my grandparents basically, why would you leave the U.S. if you're just going to be maids and janitors out there? You got all this. You're you're being groomed to take over. And so my dad is like the firstborn of the firstborn of the firstborn. He's supposed to take over the business that they had.
What bravery though, like to start. I mean, and you looking back, you've got to look at your dad and your mom going, holy crap. Like to start over in a country that you don't know the systems, the rules. And like you said, no house, you don't have an address. There's no credit. There's no like.
Well, the culture shock too, like you're going from like probably having maids.
That's exactly it.
And now you're sleeping on couches or you're getting jobs as maids. So like that's a humble pie that you have to take.
And here's the interesting thing. One thing I remember this was because they basically ran out of friends to kind of couch surf on, and we ended up renting an apartment in one of the roughest areas of Los Angeles. Still pretty rough at this point. 1-bedroom apartment. Probably about 600 square feet, maybe less. It's probably a lot less than that. It just looked bigger at the time. But we slept on the floor, no beds, basically laid out,
blankets or whatever.
Blankets on the floor. And we all basically sleep like sardines. And we lived like that for months. And my parents cried every night because, number one, they didn't know how to cook and clean. They didn't know how to care of us. And there's 5 of us kids.
Oh my gosh.
I was 12 years old at the time. My youngest sibling is 10 years younger than me. She was only 2.
Jeez.
And I remember neighbors knocking at the door, giving us food.
Wow.
Because they felt so bad. And so I grew up just like basically eating canned food because my parents didn't know how to cook at the time. So we'd go to grocery and we'd just eat Spam all day and like, corned beef and anything like that, sardines, processed stuff. And they eventually discovered Costco, and we would be drinking gallons and gallons of milk and cooking lots of spaghetti because that's all they knew how to make.
That's all I know how to make. Now I get it. My kids, luckily.
That's true, actually. I think I've been to your house for like 3 times for dinner. It's just always
spaghetti and pancakes.
You gotta change that up.
Yeah, well, no, you don't have to tell me what to do, Mitch. It's not you. Anyway, Alvin. So you're in the United States. Your family went from basically fell from probably a pretty fairly wealthy, privileged life, so to speak, and now you're sleeping on couches and eating canned Spam. And okay, what happens? Like what happens? And you're 12, 13.
Yeah. So, I mean, man, there's so much that happened, man. Like I got bullied around in school. I was always the smallest kid. I got bullied around. Just so you guys know, my dad's first job, he was actually a janitor. So it was kind of just like, he was so ashamed of it. And, but he had no choice. And so, I remember my parents crying every night, like trying to figure things out. They just didn't know what to do. And, so I decided then like, wow, this is a rude awakening, like I had the shift of like being this rich bratty kid who was so spoiled to all of a sudden like a reality just happened. Like, wow, that's my first recollection of understanding what wealth was. I had no idea. So, and I remember at the time, I'm like, what's it going to take to get out of this and get back to the lifestyle that I remember? And I made a mental note then, like, okay, I kept on hearing my parents and people around me saying like, the US is the land of opportunity. And this is one of the reasons why they come here. And so I just knew then, like I had to look at this perspective, like, oh, if this truly is the land of opportunity, where is that? So my mind just started racing in that direction. Of course I was 12. I had no idea what's going on, you know? So I ended up just thinking, okay, well, let me just put my head down, go to school, started going to school, started getting bullied. And next thing you know, we had this whole Karate Kid kind of story where we met a neighbor who was like in martial arts, saw that we're getting bullied. He's like, hey, let me teach you guys a little martial arts, and brought us to, I guess a school that he went to. And me and my siblings at the time, we started taking Taekwondo, and I took Taekwondo till about, I think, 17. At one point, I was actually qualified to be in the Olympics because I was competing and I was getting all these trophies and things like that, and just ranked really high. And just qualified for the Olympics, and simple twist of fate there, I decided to drop out of the Olympics, effectively to protect my brothers. So I haven't been open about this for a long time, but I don't know if you guys heard my 7 to 8 at one point, but I was being molested by the teacher.
Oh God.
And so I remember, like, I had to make a decision, like, at some point my brothers were getting older, and teacher basically was, I should say coach, he was effectively starting to look at my siblings in that way. And I'm like, man, I can't let this happen. So I dropped out of that. And that was my very first recollection of being able to pivot. So I just completely dropped out of that. And, and I started, ever since then, I started challenging authority. Like I couldn't trust anybody.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm a lot open about that now, just because I knew that was a big part of my DNA and who I am. And I actually took that to a certain mindset that helped me elevate, because then at that point I'm like, okay, this is survival. I got to now figure out what else to do. Because at that point, all I wanted to be was a martial artist, instructor, and Olympian.
I gotta say, like, first of all, opening up about that can't be easy. But second of all, doing that is so powerful. Like, to help other people, and to like you can create so much good with your story and where you've come out of darkness out of. So like, I mean, I get chills listening to your story, man.
I love, like, talk about a life of adversity. Like that rich privileged kid is long gone. Dad's a janitor. You're getting bullied. You've gone through some incredible adversity. Like, I love the fact that you just said, and unpacking that, like, it changed your mindset. Like, we are all kind of a product of our experiences, and we can choose to take those experiences and play victim and give up on life, or take it and make it a chip on your shoulder and build a mindset that lets you pivot and help others. And I can sense just by reading your bio and just talking to you, like, a big part of your sort of personal mission is obviously building wealth, but also helping other people.
Absolutely. I mean, and that's kind of where everything ties together for me. I didn't know what to do at that point. I was 17. I dropped out of, my Olympic dreams. And I was still kind of in the middle of high school, and I'm like, you know what, let me go back and concentrate in school. So I went back and, didn't know what to do at that point. I thought I was going to be martial artist instructor. Now I'm like, I need to figure something else out. And I tested really good in some placement tests to see what kind of career you're going to have. And I was really good at math and science. It says, oh, you're going to be an engineer. And I'm like, oh, rightfully so, because I'm really good with drawing. I like building stuff. Like I've always sort of, I love Star Wars. I want to build spaceships. And I'm like, all right, I'll take on aerospace engineering. So for the next 3 years, I took aerospace engineering to realize.
You had aerospace engineering classes in your high school? Like, I was lucky to have, like, basic reading in my high school. So
well, dude, I would say, like, I had calculus when I was 9th grade. So I guess I had the brains for it.
Wow.
Don't ask me about math now, because I can't remember shit.
Okay, good. I can't either.
But look, so 3 years into the college, I realized that, like, man, I can't really see myself doing this. I did like a tour at one of the aviation and aerospace companies, I'm like, I seen those guys, they're just kind of locked in their offices and wearing, I felt like they looked like slaves to me, you know? And I'm like, I just couldn't deal with it. I couldn't get that visual off of my head. I'm like, wow, this is the right fit. And I decided then, like, wow, I don't know if I'm going to go through with this. And just so happened that year, they had announced that the following year, they were closing down my core classes. And they said, there's only one other school you can go to, and that's like San Luis Obispo. And I had to move and all this stuff. Or I had the option to like just take some other type of engineering, which didn't really excite me. And, at the time I had friends who had graduated the year before. They couldn't find any work. Mind you, this was in the early 90s, guys. I'm giving away my age here.
Wait, how old are you?
I'm turning 52 in a couple of months.
Dude,
Damn.
no way. You look way younger than Travis.
It's a skin products that he's. What the hell?
I thought for sure you were the old guy on the call. So anyway,
I'm always the old guy in the call. I feel like. Anyway, that's awesome, man. Kudos for looking like you're in your 20s and you're 50. So anyway, continue on. Mitch interrupted you. He's rude like that. So.
Well, look, so here you go again. I dropped out of college. It's another pivot point for me. And at that point, I didn't know what to do. I told my parents, hey, dropping out of college. They asked me, what are you going to do? I said, oh, I might pursue art because I'm really good at art. And, I would take those classes because all the girls are there.
No, that makes sense. That makes sense. Here, let's just get to the bottom of it here.
Yeah. But really so I took art and realized then like, man, this is something I could be really good at. And at the time too, I didn't know what to do. And I started like doing delivery services, like being a messenger service, delivering packages to like the Disneys, the Mattels, the studios. And I asked this one guy on his smoke break that was working at the studio, I'm like, what do you exactly do? Because I see you drawing Mickey Mouse every day. And he's like, honestly, I don't even remember what his title was, but all I remember was he was making $70,000 a year or something like that and didn't have a college degree. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. At the time, $70,000 was a lot of money.
Right.
Right. And I'm like, dude, I want to do that. And he goes, well, there's no school for it when I started this, but now there is. So maybe you should check it out. So I did try to enroll in that school. At the time, I actually didn't have any like portfolio. They were asking for a portfolio. I'm like, what is a portfolio? I had no idea what it was. So in like a week, I put one together and then I got accepted, at this place called Pasadena Art Center. And so I went there for, a few months, quickly realized, man, I can't afford this place. I just couldn't afford it.
This is not working.
This is not working now. I just can't afford this place. And I decided to drop out again. I told the teacher, hey, I can't afford this place. And she said to me, well, Alvin, you're really talented at this. All you really need to know is the software. And good thing is I'm teaching the software at night at this one small trade school that I can probably get you in. So I took that. I took her lead. I got into that trade school. Did that for maybe 12 months. And next thing you know, they're doing a placement test for an agency. So was looking for some interns. And I actually got the job. So that was my first entry point to the design industry. So I was an artist at this point. I was doing like, retouching. This is when Photoshop 2.0 first came out. And, I was super excited about that. I got really good at that stuff. And I realized then, okay, this is kind of the career I want to get into. But then I already had my sights on like, wow, I need to start this business because that's also about the time where I read Rich Dad, Poor Dad.
Oh, here we go.
Ding, ding, ding.
Yep. And I realized then like, wow, real estate's my end game. I want to be in the investor quadrant. You guys remember Cashflow quadrant?
Oh, I love that book.
So that's the book that really like blew my mind and changed everything for me.
Unreal book. Yeah.
So I said, okay, I want to be in the business. I want to be an investor and, but I need money. And the only way I can really have money is to have a business. So I plotted my way in that company thinking, man, I need to really learn this business. And I kind of hit a little bit of a bottleneck thinking like, wow, this company isn't big enough. And I realized like, I got to find someone or something or another company that can teach me how to do this better. And I found an agency at that point who was ran by an Asian guy in LA, and he's one of the top 5 agencies. I'm like, okay, I'm getting a job there because I can learn from him. He's going to be my model. And I interviewed. I actually took a pay cut to get that job. I started again from the bottom, but I remember in my interview, I told the guy, I go, I want to work for you. I'm taking a pay cut just to come here. But I want you to remember because at some point I'm probably going to be running this company for you. And I think that's how I got hired.
Right.
He's like, sweet.
Right. Well, I mean,
who not how, baby?
As an employer, though, listening to that, like I'd be like, you know what? Touche. Yeah. I think if you're that motivated and you're taking a pay cut, like that captures the attention for sure.
Yeah. So, it took a while, about 9 years. I was there for 9 years and finally was kind of at the point where I was running the job. I was running the place to the most part. I was the senior creative director of the company. And at that point too, that boss of mine, mentor of mine had been grooming me to kind of take the lead. And he was getting ready to retire. And he said, hey, Alvin, do you want to completely take over? And I had no idea what that meant. I think he was actually trying to sell me the company. I had no idea that was even possible. So my mind was too small to even understand that concept.
Right.
So I happily declined, only because it also gave me a reason to start thinking about like, man, if he's leaving and he wants me to take over, maybe it's my chance to kind of start my own business. But what I do recall is this, like we were having lunch that one day and, we were actually had a bottle of scotch at this point and my heart was speaking.
Well, a bottle of scotch will make your heart speak. I'll tell you that.
I'll tell you, man, like I was pretty loaded, that lunch turned into dinner at that point.
Yeah.
And,
just keep going.
and I said, if you're going to sell this place, and you're looking to cut some expenses, might be a good idea. Maybe lay me off and give me severance pay. And I got to tell you, the next day I completely like, what did I just do, guys?
You're like, oh shit, I screwed it off.
So a few months later, I actually did get laid off and my heart was broken.
Oh, wow.
I'm like, holy shit. Like,
that's why I tell Mitch, don't drink scotch at breakfast every day. Stop doing that.
Hey, you know what? I want my heart to speak all day. All right. So that you got to start early. No, I'm joking.
So he lays you off really quick, Alvin, in hindsight, knowing what you know now, and you're a much bigger thinker, would you have gone I don't even know what your route was. I don't know what journey you took. You're about ready to share that with us, but would you have bought the company?
At the time I had no means to do it. Like I didn't even know. I can't even think that big back then. Even now I'm like, do I want to buy that company? I think I was selling it for a little too high. But I'm a DIY guy. So I decided, let me just start my own thing. So at this point I had, old clients that I said, hey, who become friends of mine. I said, guys, I'm looking for work. And actually I was looking for a job, but they mistook it and said, hey, you're looking for projects? Okay, I'll start sending you projects. Mm-hmm. In the next few months, man, I just got loaded and started hiring more people because I had too much work. And I became a business owner at that point.
Wow.
So, and
you were doing design work right now, right? You're like,
I was doing design work. Give me an example of that. I'm sorry, just to understand like what. So this was mostly entertainment work. So we did everything from, theatrical posters to TV branding to anything like that. Like I worked on Harry Potter, I worked on Tomb Raider, I worked on a lot of the A titles.
Got it. Okay. That puts in perspective. I'm thinking design. I need to picture what that was. So
you're an entrepreneur, you have staff working for you. You start seeing the world of leverage.
I started seeing the world of leverage, and this was back in 2008. But let me go back a little bit before that. 2003, I started buying my first property. And so while I had this full-time job, I was kind of learning how to flip houses, rehabbing houses, flipping houses. So I technically had a second job on the side there.
Did you own your own house?
I bought my first house, which I actually house hacked. That's another story to tell.
By the way, people listening, it's like, notice a trend. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, getting to the B in the I quadrant, house hack.
Yeah, at the time, the term house hack didn't really, wasn't coined yet, right?
Oh, we all did it. We all did it before Brandon Turner came up.
Yeah,
with
we
it.
all.
I think he came.
Yeah.
We all did it out of necessity, like, damn, how am I going to afford this place? I got 3 bedrooms. Like, who can we get in here?
Well, Brandon's really good at taking things that we do, though, and this is not a slight of Brandon, but it's just true. He takes things that we all do and he brands it. He creates something. He creates a framework out of it, and I'm like, it's actually really genius. So yeah, people have been doing this for forever. So anyway,
yeah. So so at this time, like I started, I've been flipping houses, I've been rehabbing houses, I've been trying to build my portfolio, and by the way, right around the time I got laid off was 2008. You guys remember what happened in 2008, right?
Oh yeah.
So
the big trader.
We know. Yeah.
So I lost some money on real estate. I bought some properties out of state, and that was one of my first experiences buying property out of state, and I lost it because of 2008. I lost like 2 condos in Florida.
So did you give them back to the bank?
I actually ended up selling it at a loss. But I lost maybe about, I can't remember, probably about 50 to 70,000, which hurt at the time.
Yeah, but we were young. We were young then, and I was doing spec houses, and I had to hold on to a piece of land with an interest-only note, and lost $100,000 over the next 5 7 years. So, yeah, man, people that listen to these types of shows or look at people like us and go, man, like they just figured it all out. Like, listen, and I'll let you get back to your story, but just unpacking some of this. Listen to the themes here. First of all, you've used the word dropout a few times, but I would argue and say that's not dropping out. That's like cutting your losses and pivoting, right? People that are successful, they don't dwell on the fact that they've lost money or they made the wrong mistake or they put a bunch of time into something like taekwondo or aerospace engineering. Like, nope, not it. I need to pivot. And they make the decision. They always have a burning why. Your burning why comes from your upbringing, and which is really unique. And so I just go back to this, like, man, like there's a path here, right? People pivot. They take losses, and people, like, we've all lost money. Like everybody's lost money. Everybody's got their teeth kicked in. And do you quit? Do you take your ball and go home? Or do you say, nope, I've learned from that. I'm going to pivot and just really focus on, problem solving in the future. So anyway, I love your story, and I love how this follows a path that so many people we talk to on the show.
I want to piggyback on that really quick, 30 seconds. Like I feel like culturally there's just been this thing where it's like, go to school, go to college, get a job, stay with that job as long as you can. Even if you hate it, stay with it, invest in your 401k, and then retire poor and move to Florida, rent one of those condos you used to own or whatever. So, but like, I think that what I think is interesting about your story is that, like what Travis said, is like, I think that the worst thing that we can be is idle. The worst thing we can be is lazy. But like, as long as you're moving, you're passionate, you're driving forward, try and quit as many things as you need to find your lane, to find your person market fit. Like I think the worst thing in this, to me, is like, I don't have a whole lot of respect for idleness or laziness, but people that try a lot of things and quit a lot of things and then find their lane, I'm like, hell yeah. Like, I hope my kids do that. I want them to explore. So I love your path.
You're getting to the plate. Yeah, I'm going to be in aerospace. I'm going to taekwondo, swing. I'm going to aerospace engineering, swing. Design, swing, and flipping, lost my swing. But like, if you're not up at the plate swinging, you're never going to hit the effing ball.
Yep.
So anyway, yeah, you just, and you pivot. You can just sit around and sulk all day about the mistakes you made, which is head capital, right? It's just head space. And you're not focusing on like creating value elsewhere and marching in. Anyway, sorry, Mitch interrupted you again, but,
well, it was great. It was a great interruption. Actually, he loved it the most out of any of the interruptions. So
to be debated. To be debated. So Alvin, okay, so you've lost some money. It's 08. We've all lost money in 08. And a lot of people, by the way, did pick their ball up and go home. They went and got their W-2 job, and they're still working to this day, working for their gold watch or whatever the hell it is when you retire at 65. So you lost money, then what? What happened?
So yeah, 2008. So I started building. I decided then, I'm going to focus on this design thing. So I started my, at that same time, around that time, I got laid off, and I'm like, all right, I'm going to start my own business. I started my own business. that thing just started taking off. And I'm like, wow, now I made all this money again. I think my first year, I probably hit about $800,000 in like revenue right off the bat the first year. And I'm like, wow, I'm going to get hit with some massive capital gains here. Or you know, I'm going to get taxed a lot. So I'm like, okay, it's time to start buying real estate now. Now I can really afford it. So, you know, at the time, my girlfriend, or actually my wife, so we got married that same year. So, you know, I lost everything and then got married and started business and started hitting like $800,000 in revenue and realized I got to put this into something. And it was really hard to find financing at that time, 2008. I know you guys remember because there was no loans. So I had to be really creative. By 2009, we found a property. We bought this house for $415,000. It was distressed. It was an REO. And it was a massive, massive rehab.
For those of you that don't know, REO is, by the way, real estate owned, means the bank had to foreclose on that property. And banks don't want to own property at all. So anyway, sorry to interrupt there, but
yeah. So I got into an REO. So I bought the first REO that I ever had, and bought it for $415,000. This thing is worth about $2.5 million now, by the way.
Do you own it still?
I still own it. In fact,
nice.
I'm in it right now.
Oh, God. Awesome.
So effectively, I bought it as a live work space. So it was a house. It's right on, you know, the boulevard. And, you know, at the time, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to put my business into that instead of renting a retail space. So I made in my office. So I expanded the business into it instead of selling it. At the time, I thought I was going to flip it.
Hey, Alvin, how did you finance that deal? If loans were tough,
I found a lender that would lend on it. Finally, it was like one of the first lender that finally opened up, and you know, I convinced them like, hey, you know, this is an REO. And by the way, I remember this thing was so distressed. It had no bathrooms. Like literally everything was scavenged, right? And
like stole the toilets or whatever.
They stole the railing off of the second floor balconies for the metal.
I've seen those before. You're like, who's stealing toilets, man? This is just
it's so crazy. Like, and there was a bum living in it, by the way. And so I hired that guy to keep an eye on the place.
You hired the bum?
I hired the bum to keep an eye on the place for me. And man, I gotta say, like it kind of worked out. He was like a little sergeant, you know, like, you know, he had a uniform and everything. I was like, this guy's legit.
What a different way of thinking, though. Like, you make an ally of this guy,
kick him out, and I shouldn't say bum. Sorry, isn't it unhoused now? Is the illegal or the
homeless? I don't know.
It's unhoused.
Is that
unhoused? Anyway, yeah.
But someone found the fence of that too. So anyway, so you hire this unhoused person.
Yeah, so he and my brother helped me like put this thing together just so it could be financed. So, you know, for you to be able to get a conventional loan, you know, it's got to be habitable. And what's the definition of habitable? You got to have a stove and you got to have a working toilet. So I went to Home Depot. I got a toilet, put it on place, got one of those sinks, you know, the ready-made sink with with everything on it, put it on there. Got a used stove for $25 from Craigslist, popped it in there, and it got inspected and it got appraised, and next thing you know, I was able to get a loan. And the bank owner or the loan officer said, you guys were pretty clever with what you did. I know what you did, but I'm glad someone was clever enough and thoughtful enough and creative enough to actually make this happen. So we got it financed, man.
Well, keep going. I was curious, like, what's next in the real estate? I'm so anxious to like understand your real estate journey from there, because that had to open up like doors for you, right? Didn't you realize, like, look, I put this deal together, like?
Yeah. So I started thinking about like, wow, what else can I buy? You know, at this point, no one's buying. So I started buying all these REOs. So, you know, at the time, like, what else can we buy? So we just started buying REOs. I'm still building my business on the side, you know, so we're just kind of all over the place. Like,
are you flipping these REOs? Or are you holding them?
No, I was holding on to them. At this point, I've learned, you know what, the best way is just to keep them at this point.
Oh, I'm sorry. What was that?
To keep them.
I know. That was making a point. We're big buy and hold guys. So
Yeah.
love it.
So I'm a big buy and hold guy. I've always been that guy, but I learned that at this point, these are, first of all, it's gonna be hard to flip. No one's buying. So, there's all these deals everywhere. I just knew at some point it's gonna bounce back. I just knew it's gonna bounce back. So I started buying, and so every year we're starting buying properties, renovating them, keeping them as rentals. In California and Los Angeles, rents go up pretty rapidly here. And that's one of the real reasons why I still like California, because what people don't know, or most people don't realize, is the property tax don't go up every year. You buy it once, you get reassessed once, and you're locked in at that rate for however long you own the house. So unlike many states, and my rent keeps going up, appreciation keeps going up. So it's like I'm winning either way. And this is one of the powers of California, especially in Los Angeles. Right now this house is worth $2.5 million.
Well, it's it's interesting that you mentioned that, because we buy commercial properties, right? And so you buy them in the Midwest, you buy them for cash flow, they generate cash flow, you pay down debt, you can force appreciate them, but maybe you're force appreciating them at a 7 or an 8 cap rate. Whereas in California or West Coast stuff, maybe the cash flow fundamentals aren't there. Maybe they are there for you, but because you're generally, the entry price is a lot higher. But man, for every annual dollar of profit you put into that thing at a 4 or 5 cap, the appreciation is going up so fast. So properties do appreciate a hell of a lot faster on these coastal states, especially Oregon, California, Washington.
Yeah, and if you can force the appreciation right off the bat by building equity, and so one of our strategies right now, we actually just increased square footage right off the bat. You'll buy a property, I'll buy like a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom house, increase it by 500 square feet, and all of a sudden it doubles in value.
So you're adding a room?
Yeah, and then I build a second unit in the back, maybe a third with the ADUs. Man, next thing you know, you're cash flowing and you got all this equity.
I think it's great. And I'm thinking through how I want to say this, because Mitch and I were talking about what we're going to sort of be educating our elites on after this on the Elite Mastermind call. And there's always these pivot points in history, right? And I'm going back a little bit, but 2008 was a huge pivot point. I started my first business in 2009. So I got into the True I Quadrant, was a tech company that I grew over the next 11 years. And I started buying real estate, not at the scale we're doing now, but you talk to a lot of people like David Osborne, who's a founder of GoBundance. You talk to a lot of people that lived through that time, and the people that said, screw it, I'm out, I'm never doing this again, I lost my job, or I lost a bunch of money. They're nowhere near the people that saw opportunity, right? It's everybody, everything was happening around, everybody saw the same thing. But what lens did they look at it? You looked at you saw opportunity.
I look at something that when people are running away from, I'm going towards that thing because that means there's opportunity there. People are running away from California, I'm going to run into it, because if I can go in there and figure out what's wrong with it and fix that problem, then I'm going to be winning.
Oh, we're listening to this book now, Mitch and I, where the guy he's sold multiple businesses for over $1 billion. And he says, embrace problems, because that's when value is created. And that's exactly what you just said. So I love that.
I mean, look, my background, guys, is product development, right? I didn't get to my story about, we're going to be running out of time here. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. But my whole skill set was developing things, product development. I started inventing toys. I started looking into, developing toys, and I launched a company called Soap Socks, not Soapbox. It's Soap Socks, SOX.
Sorry, I screwed it. Mitch must have typoed that in the intro. It's his fault. Okay, anyway, go ahead.
Damn, Mitch.
Everything's Mitch's fault, by the way. If something goes wrong,
that's right. It's Mitch's fault. In Travis's life, it is. He's
no accountability. Anyway,
so I look at everything so people make this mistake. Look at properties or real estate as an investment. I actually look at it as a product. And that's one way to look at it. Because if you look at products, right, you look for a product that serves a need, something where there's a high demand, right? This is why I'm in California, because there's a huge housing crisis here. Mm-hmm. There's a demand right there, right? And if I can create products that will suit the needs, the next thing you know, I'm not going to run out of users for this. end users for this, right? This is why I'm looking into assisted living. I'm doing sober living. These are like businesses and operating businesses and real estate plays that a lot of people are walking away from because they're too scared of it, because they think it's too high barrier of entry.
We have guys, elites in our tribe that are doing this and they're crushing it. And we have people in GoBundance in the Northwest group that are doing this. So I love that you said, I love that lens. Anyway, go ahead, Mitch. I love the lens on, I need to find the highest need and I need to solve a problem. And that's where value is created.
I think though that we get with real estate, we get in the habit of looking at it like, oh, we're just going to buy and cash flow it and just let our managers manage it. But what if we look at it like, look, this is a real human looking for a real product, looking for a real solution. And then whether it's a mobile home park in our case, or a ADU in the backyard, like building products for a specific niche. Like, I think that's, as far as like, for me, that's the most valuable thing you said about real estate. Like that's interesting to me.
And here's the thing, right? This is something I learned from my years of developing products for all these companies, right? The real estate is a product. If you look at it, it's a product, right? So now I look at it at this lens of, when I'm looking for properties, most people look at a property like, oh, it's not going to work for my strategy. So they get rid of it, right? Well, why is it not going to work? It's because you don't have the right exit for it, because you only have one exit for it. So I started looking at it the other way, where it's like, if I can't find a deal, maybe I can find a better exit for it to make up for the deal, for the discount, right? So this is why, people say, oh, you can't find deals in California. Well, you don't find a deal, you create the deal.
Make a deal.
So this is why I force the value. I add rooms, because then I can force a cash flow. I can add more units. I force a cash flow there. And guess what? What if I put a business on top? Well, dude, it's just going to blow up. Right? So now I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, what can I do with one single family as a product? What products can I create out of this one thing? Right? So I focus on 1 to 4 units right now, but let's just take single family for an instance, right? Okay, long-term rental, short-term rental, mid-term rental. So I got that going on. I do co-living by way of student housing. I'm doing that now, right? What else can I do with co-living? What else is there? Oh, there's assisted living. There's sober living. Those are all co-living models. So this is why I'm venturing into those, because now my whole goal is I'll build the real estate and I know exactly what to do with them, because I have all these different exit strategies in place and I got systems for all of them.
I love that you say that, because so many people in business, and not as much real estate, or real estate too, actually, like they're very myopic thinking. Like people that start businesses think they're going to run the business forever and they're going to give it to their kids, but that's so unlikely. People that start with the end in mind and exits in mind, those are the people that do the right things in the interim to drive multiple options and drive the most amount of value. If you look at the exit before you start, you're going to drive the highest amount of value. And I love that you tie that into real estate, because you're like we bought a portfolio of multiple properties. Like we can sell it as a portfolio. We can exit them individually. There's like, kind of things we can do, multiple exits. I love that you're saying like, I have multiple exits.
My key here is, you got to start thinking bigger, not just one exit, look for exits that can work for one thing, So I'm looking at like, real estate as that, like it's a product extensions, If you go to like certain brands, like toys, let's just say you got Hot Wheels, let's just say you got all different types of Hot Wheels. You got this that will do this. You got this that will jump. This one will go in water. This one's remote. All these things. I used to develop those things, so I had to think this way. And so what can go wrong here? Like you just, I want to be able to go into MLS and point and shoot and say, hey, I know exactly what to do with that, because I know an exit for that.
And we also call that seeing the gold in plain sight that nobody else sees. Like you see gold in something that everybody else sees, a house. You see co-living, sober living, you see an ADU, you see $1 million in upside here, you see additional cash flow there, force appreciating this there, whereas other people just see a house. So again, like, especially in this environment where people can't say, I can't find a deal. I can't find a deal. There's no deals. And you're like, well, are you, like you said, are you making a deal, and are you so honed into your craft because you're very good at what you do? Have you developed that sixth sense that nobody else can see? So I love that you said that.
Yeah. And really, guys, like there's, it's really hard to find deals these days, but then you got to start thinking, well, if you can't find the deals, what can I control? And that's the exits. So yeah, I just got to start thinking the other way, man. Like, be a contrarian.
Like I told Mitch, I want to buy these RV parks like are run down, but are in good locations that have all the infrastructure, and then build in like tiny cottages, something like that. Like repurpose, or these people that are buying malls and turning them into multifamily, or like, you know, it's like, what can I do with this property? What's the exit? How can I repurpose it? How can I think differently that the mass is not thinking like? So makes me inspired, Mitch. We got to go back to the drawing board and whiteboard. Let's go to California.
I know. Well, I mean, it's like, what's the highest and best use for these properties, whether it's single family or fourplex or mobile home park, or and that's and then the product piece, man, that I love that you're from a product and a design background, applying it to real estate. Like that to me is so interesting. You've got my brain just like going on the properties that we even own. Like what can we do to level up and provide people a product? Because everyone's looking for something, and it's like they're not going to ask for it. You got to go in and actually like provide that and monitor or optimize that property that way. So is this your strategy? Is this how you describe your strategy? Like you're out looking today for these single to fourplex, and you're putting together you're looking for unique opportunities. Is that what your business looks like today?
Yeah, it's essentially, my business is, we're gonna cast a wide net, and whatever comes out, we know exactly what to do with. So whether it's a deal or not, so you know, it's a dangerous game because I do have a squirrel mindset. But,
well, you're not
but
at
the same time, like, you know, I gotta challenge myself to make sure that I'm looking for projects that fit certain criterias that fall in these 4 categories, you know, which is the long-term rental, actually 5: long-term rental, short-term rental, student housing. We have assisted living, and also I'm looking into this new one now, sober living. And so, you know, I'm partnering with operators that can operate these things, or I'm, you know, for assisted living, the senior assisted living, I actually got my broker's license, the administrator license to operate. So I learned that business too, just so I know how to run it.
Dan Kennedy is a marketer, okay? But he says this thing that's really interesting. He's like, the person that can pay the highest price and still make it work wins. So like, if I think about you, where you capture an edge, and I think you've kind of alluded to this, is like, you can actually pay a higher. In other words, you don't need the same deal I need if I'm just going to do one thing with that single family home. I might not be able to pay a certain price versus you're like, no, I can pay that price because guess what? ADU in the back, MTR on the bottom. I'm doing a business on top. I'm doing, however that looks, to where I'm going, that doesn't make sense. And you're like, oh, it makes sense to me.
Yeah. Like, I'm not going to buy that. I'm overpaying by $20,000 or $50,000. And Alvin's like, oh, you have no idea, because I'm going to take this thing and it's going to be worth millions more. So I'll pay an extra $20,000 to $50,000 to outcompete my competition. Yeah, man. It's like, again, it goes back to like mindset. We talk about this all the time in the tribe. It's like, what is your mindset? What lens are you looking at the world with? Is it the lens that everybody else is? If you're looking at the lens that 99% of the people look at the world with, then you're going to, you know, it's going to be a race to the bottom. But if you change the lens that you look at the world with, that's when the magic happens. And that's where billionaires are made, by the way, is when they look at the lens differently and spot the trend. So Alvin, what is your current portfolio now? What are you said $30 million in real estate across several states. Do you own mostly multi-unit stuff? Like, what does this look like?
It's actually a little bit more than that now. If I include other joint ventures, it's probably around 60 million. But for my personal, it's probably around 35. So majority of the stuff I own is in California. I do own apartments out of state, a couple apartments, and also some RV campgrounds out of state. So I've got a 475 pad RV campground in North Carolina. So I partnered with other people with that. I got 2 apartments in Kansas City, Missouri, which this is one of the reasons why I asked about like, what does 0 to 100 mean? Is because, you know, I've got a 30-unit apartment in Kansas, Missouri, which had given me headaches for the past couple of years after stabilizing it. Bought it for 1.6. It's probably barely worth about 2.5. It cost me, you know, in the last 2.5 years. And I'm like, dude, I can do 1.6 to 3 million in 6 months over here in California. What am I doing out of state? And this is why, like, you know, and that's one property, one headache. If I were to get 1 or 2 tenants in there, that's 2 tenants instead of 29 headaches. So I always question this now because, I got that shiny object. I'm like, let me try multifamily out of state. See what this thing is all about. Quickly discovered, it's overhyped.
I hate multifamily right now. I hate multifamily apartments. Sorry.
Apartments are, I mean, I think it depends on the game you're playing, but I do understand what you're saying.
Well, you also look at things. I like that you look at through the lens of time too. You're like, what am I doing? Like,
to me, it's opportunity cost. And the one thing, as you start to scale, as you start to understand, start playing in different types of asset class, you start to realize where's the opportunity cost here. And you don't see that until you're operating at a bigger level.
Well, Mitch and I always use the example, we could have made $1 million developing an RV park, or we can just go buy one, implement dynamic software. We call that a lazy reposition and add several millions of dollars in upside and cash flow. So it's like, do I spend 1 million hours dealing with cities and permits and headaches, developing something from the ground up, or do I take something and improve upon it? So you're like you're buying the bones, and you're enhancing them, and you're making them better, and you're innovating on these particular products. So
we do some ground up developments too, but anything that would only be between 6 to 18 months, nothing further than that.
I'm allergic to ground up, and I'm allergic now to multifamily apartment complex. We love mobile home parks, and we do love we own a nightly stay RV park that's a little cat. We love that. We have a question from the live audience here, and if we're running out of time, in fact, we're over time, so. We'll get into that's fine because we're going to hop off this and we'll get on with our elites to do sort of I call it the fireside chat. That came from FDR, and I like FDR. I thought he was cool, but apparently Mitch always criticizes that I call it the fireside chat where our elites get to talk to you. But
that was Gabe actually, because Gabe was like, "There's no fire." He was so mad about the fire, and then you said, "I said that."
No, so come to me with problems and solutions is all I got to say. Okay, so we got a question here from Brenna. What systems do you use to track all these different models and types of tenants? For example, silver versus student versus short-term rentals. So, what systems and what tools do you use to track these things?
So I like getting partners involved. So for all the short-term rentals and mid-term rentals, I have co-hosts that I negotiate anywhere from 10 to 12%. So they manage all that stuff for me. And I do have my internal bookkeeping that then has audits with the partner to make sure they're on top of things.
These are operating partners. These are people that go in and operate
operating
these
partners.
Assets.
That's exactly it.
You own the real estate, and then they're the I love that. Who, not how.
It's who, not how, man. I'm trying to simplify things for me. And what I've learned is if you want to scale, it's all about having teams. It's all about bringing partners. This is a team sport. I'm done with DIY. Tried that. It just bottlenecks and gives you so much headache.
Well, if you're in the weeds dealing with we didn't get the milk order this week into the assisted care, you've lost focus on the ability to go create several $1 million of value somewhere else because you're in the weeds over here. There's a massive opportunity cost, either just time invested or just headspace. And so I love that you say that.
Yep. And that goes the same with all the other businesses, with sober living, I'm bringing a partner as well on that. With the assisted living, although I have an operator's license, administrator license, I took that only so I can understand the business better because it's a very, very regulated business. I want to know exactly who I need to hire, and what better so than learn exactly what that person should know about. And so I'm bringing in a partner for that to run operation, and once I get that going, I'm going to scale it.
Hey, Alvin, what happened, just out of curiosity, what happened to your design business, to some of the other businesses that you started? I mean, I'm sure I'm wondering the same thing. I'm wondering if others
are. All right. So here's what happened, right? You guys remember that little known thing called COVID?
Oh, if Gabe was on here, he would have a heyday with this question. I don't know what he talking about.
Yeah, I don't know what COVID is. Yeah.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we remember that. Yeah.
Well, in 2020, all of Los Angeles shut down. My studio clients basically, stopped, everything halted. People getting laid off. A lot of my clientele were getting laid off. Probably lost about 80% of my clientele. Felt like it was starting over. And at that time, man, I'm so burnt out with this business. Let me just figure something else out. Same thing with my toy company. The product was coming from China, so nothing can come in from China. So I decided then, and that's about the time I joined GoBundance. And my very first meetup in GoBundance, I think it's where I met you, Mitch. Someone challenged me. They're like, Alvin, what are you still doing with all these businesses? You know, maybe just focus on one of them. Which, if you were to choose which one would it be? Which one would it be? I'm like, dude, I'm still building property in construction in LA because it's the only thing that was allowed. Dude, maybe this is a sign. What I thought my end game will be later on, that end game is now, you know, and that just dawned on me. So I decided then, you know, I'm going to drop all these other businesses. So I dropped my design agency. I effectively closed that down. My toy company, I told my partner, I'm like, dude, you know, I don't want to run day to day now. Why don't you just take over? And, you know, once we get this thing back online, you know, we'll sell it and I'll take the equity.
Before that, though, I got to say, I piggyback on you, like so inspirational where you came from, the adversity, some of the things in your life that are so tough that could have put you on the street using excuses or using drugs or doing those things. And like to learn who you are from where you came from is super, super inspirational. So with that, I will get into the last question, which is a fun question because some of our listeners are sitting right here in this very scenario. So the scenario is you've lost everything. Okay. All of your money, your business, your real estate, everything's gone. All right. You're on a buddy's couch. You've also lost your network. You want to go be successful in real estate. You want to go find deals. You want to go scale again, get to where you are. Knowing what you know today, what's your month look like? What's your week look like? How are you taking action?
All right. With everything I've learned, I would probably start right off the bat with real estate. I think this is where my best fit is for what I do is, you know, what I'm passionate about. So I would start looking for deals, like, you know, right off the bat, because given that I know what I still know, right? So I could put together, you know, the strategy really quick, and I can put together, you know, investors really quick. You know, I just have to learn how to pitch it better to new network, because you said I have no network, right? But that's easier to find if you have the right deals. You know, I'll give you an example. Like, I know I can buy properties in certain parts of LA for 1.6. I could add 500 square feet to that. I would say that would be another 400,000, right? So I'm at 2 million. The ARV on that is probably going to be around 3 million. So that's an easy sell for me. You know, I could even flip houses like that really quick. And with that, in 6 months, I probably have $500,000. I can do a lot with $500,000.
I love that. You're looking for deals. You're looking for value. You're pairing it with investors, providing opportunities to people who have cash. And all of a sudden, you're benefiting as well.
I love that Alvin's also like big on staying in his lane too. Like he went out and did some multifamily because he saw the shiny object. I love he said he's got a squirrel mindset, but he knows where to make money. He knows his locations. He knows the value add. He knows the exit before he goes in. Like, just keep doing that. And, you know, you mentioned 7 to 8, and I was, you know, people that you listen to on the 7 to 8 call, like, they usually they achieve that wealth by like becoming really damn good at one thing and executing on that over and over and over and over again. So, yeah, shiny object syndrome is definitely a thing, but focus on what you're good at, get better at it, hone your skill, you know, achieve financial freedom, time freedom, and then take a breath and figure out where you want to go. And I love the fact that you look so much younger than Mitch, and Mitch is substantially younger. You know, it's crazy. That's
Travis, he had to get that in there because he feels bad about the way you look. Travis, you're okay. This is a safe place, buddy. You're fine. I know you got some insecurities around that.
I appreciate it because I am.
Anyway, this was an amazing podcast.
I Mitch because I'm insecure. Yeah.
Okay, Travis, mute your mic real quick. Thank you, everybody who listened to this podcast. We appreciate you. As always, Travis and I can't get along, but Alvin is an amazing guest. I appreciate you, man. I can't wait to network more and catch up with you. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome.